Hi, my name is Jeff Sloss of PeakFlow Pumps. I'll get right to the point. My Chicago area company has invented never before available flood prevention equipment that stops basement flooding like nothing else can. We call it the PeakFlow iControl. This patent pending system is groundbreaking. For the first time ever, sump pump systems use today's internet technology to test and monitor equipment, communicate alarm conditions via text or email, and amazingly, allow remote access and control of the system anytime from anywhere. So if you have a smartphone or an iPad or any computer with an internet connection, you now have a sump pump monitoring system. But the equipment itself, it's not just a monitoring or alarm system. It's a fully redundant, high output AC/DC pump system installed right alongside your existing primary pump. So after about a year-long now beta testing period where we've evaluated systems installed, these iControl systems are now being made available to the general public. This video will explain the iControl system in detail and why you need an iControl system in your basement. All right, next we're going to briefly discuss how the iControl connects to the internet. Don't worry, we're not going to go into all kinds of intricate details here, but if you're doing this connection yourself, we can provide you with a really helpful document. We also have an excellent IT partner that specializes in our technology, and they're available depending on your location to be on site and do the installation. They can also assist you remotely with the installation. But briefly, here's what happens. The iControl's keypad needs an internet connection. This can be done in one of three ways. The first way, and this is my personal preference, is that you run a Cat5 cable, which is also known as an Ethernet cable, between the router that's in your house and the sump area. And it's plugged in at both ends. That's a very solid, reliable connection to your router. Number two, maybe you don't have any way of getting a cable between the two, so then you do the same thing and your router has to be wireless or Wi-Fi, and you use a wireless adapter down in the basement with this. And now these two things talk to each other and you have your iControl connected to the internet. The third way to do this is perhaps your iControl system is in an area where you don't have a router. There is no internet connection in the house. Maybe it's installed at a second home, or in a vault in a park district, we've had those, or in a school's basement. In those situations, the iControl kind of almost like needs its own internet, and we can build your iControl system so that it has its own internet. We just use some wireless technology to accomplish that. And now, even if it's in a location without existing internet, you can take advantage of the remote monitoring and control capabilities and the email and the text alarm capabilities of the system. So once the keypad has an internet connection through some sort of router, there's a couple basic edits on the router that need to be done. We're not going to go into those changes here. Connecting the iControl to the internet is pretty simple for somebody with basic networking knowledge, but if that is not you, don't worry, we're here to help. So there's a lot of sump pump equipment out there and several battery backup pump systems as well. As a consumer, how do you know what features are crucial to ensure that you're never going to flood? I feel there's 5 crucial elements of a backup pump system to make sure that you never flood. Number 1, you need high pumping capacity and high quality equipment that's going to last many years. A system with low pumping capacity, it's not even worth the bother of buying it and installing it, even despite how inexpensive it might seem. When you need a backup pump, it's typically during a heavy storm. It's raining hard, water's coming in fast. That's no time to start now relying on a low capacity pump. Some people have this, they kind of say, oh, it's just a backup pump. Yeah, it's a backup pump, and it's probably, you're going to be more reliant on it really in the heavy rains and storms on that than you are on the primary pump. You could almost say it's more important to have a higher capacity on the backup pump than the primary pump. Number 2, you need the backup pump system to work 100% automatically and you need it to work during a power outage. You might not be home when the system is needed, so this is an absolute must. Okay, so now these first 2 points, you can find these 2 features in other systems, including our other systems, but the next 3 are also just as crucial, but they're only available on the iControl. So number 3, the equipment has to be smart enough to know when attention is needed. If the system doesn't know, how are you going to know? You can admit it. You never go check your sump pump. Nobody does. This is a device that's in your basement. No, everybody ignores it, but yet it's the only thing standing between a dry basement and a completely destroyed basement. So the smarter your pump equipment is, the less likely you are to flood. Number 4, it must be able to tell you about problems. Armed with that information, you can take appropriate action. If it can't reach you, then what good is the alarm? You travel, you go to work, you shop. Maybe you just rarely go down into the basement. With iControl, you can configure the email and text alarm features to ensure that any discovered equipment concerns are being communicated to you immediately. That way you've got time for either you or your contractor to respond, instead of the issue being discovered later, maybe weeks or months later, as the cause of a flood. And finally, number 5, you have the ultimate peace of mind with iControl with the remote access and monitoring features. This is a way to just take your stress and dispense of it. You don't need to worry about your basement anymore. If you're at work or on vacation and you're worried about a thunderstorm back home, for example, you can log in anytime. You don't have to have received an alert. You can log into your equipment anytime, make sure that everything is good, view the status, test the equipment, silence an alarm, edit any of the settings. You can do that anytime from anywhere. These 5 things that we've just reviewed, if they're built into your backup pump system like they are in the iControl, that's going to be your best defense against a flooded basement. So what are some real-world examples where iControl can benefit your life? We have a page on PeakFlowPumps.com that is titled just that, real-world examples. So I'm just going to review a couple of them. The very first one says, on March 1st, if some sort of pump equipment failure or concern is discovered by the equipment, would you like to know about that on March 1st? Or would you like to know about it weeks or months later when that problem is discovered as the cause of a flood in your basement? I think most of us would like to know on March 1st. So that's what self-testing technology gives you, and the ability for it to relay that information to you. Another example, if the rains are really coming down and now the power goes out in your neighborhood and your pumps are working feverishly and then the power goes out, so now you're switching all that faith you have in your pumps over to the little tiny backup pump system you maybe bought at the hardware store. You might second guess that decision at that point. A backup pump really should have higher pumping capacity, or at least similar to what your primary pump does, to be worth its worth installing really. Let's take another example. You're out shopping, or you're at work, or you're on vacation, and you get an alert on your phone that either there's some sort of equipment concern, or maybe the pump is running, whatever it is. You can discreetly, if you need to, just silence that alarm, log into the system, test it again, make sure everything's okay, and have that peace of mind that you're not just getting like an alert from a dialer or something and you have no idea what's going on back home. You can log right in and know what's going on back home. You know it's not an emergency, and you don't have to send an emergency technician to the house to save the day. Or maybe you do. But the point is, you have the information in your hand, and you can even dispatch that technician right from your phone if it's set up that way. The other thing you could do is maybe you're out to dinner, and you know that because of whatever this activity was with the sump pump, that the unit is beeping. So now you know you can call maybe the babysitter or something and tell her that beeping you heard, don't worry about it, it's okay, I've silenced it, everything's fine. it's just having those kinds of things as for peace of mind that really people don't realize until they actually own an iControl. Maybe one last thing is you're in bed, you're asleep, and you've got your phone set to wake you up if there is an urgent alarm. So you look at it while you're still in bed. I don't know about you, but I keep my smartphone next to me. Bad habit. And you can do the same thing I just described. You can make sure that everything is fine. You don't even have to get out of bed. So there's other real world examples on our website, and now we invite you to go check that out at peakflowpumps.com. Thanks. So let's go through the components that come with an iControl. In the box, you will get a battery box itself for that's what the battery will go in. There's some paperwork in there, owner's manual, quick start guide. There's a registration sheet to show you how to register the unit through our website. There's the pump itself, some adapter fittings, some wiring. There's an accessory box here that has things like the float sensors and clamps, cable ties. This is the controller itself that'll mount to the wall and everything plugs into the bottom of. And this is the keypad. The keypad plugs into the controller, mounts to it. Actually, it could be anywhere. And then the internet mount goes into the bottom of the keypad. So we're going to look at a diagram here, and I'll go briefly through each component just to give a better explanation. So here's the diagram, and we can review some of the hardware here. The pump itself is down in the sump that's installed right alongside the electric sump pump. Now you could actually put two of the iControl pumps in the sump, and then we call it an iControl X2. You might see that on the website, and that's what that is. It just means there's a two pump system, which also means there's two controllers. Above the pumps, at the water level that you want those pumps to be triggered, is where the dual float sensors go. The pump, when it needs to run, gets its power from the controller, and it can run off of regular house power, or it can run off of a battery if the power is out. So the pump, the sensors, and the battery, they're all connected into the bottom of the controller. Also connected into the bottom of the controller is the keypad. The keypad is designed to mount right to the controller. It doesn't have to, you can mount it somewhere else, but that's the easiest place to put it. The keypad has a real nice interface. It's an easy to use, intuitive menu system, real easy to figure out. And the LCD display is a bright blue backlit display, very simple to see. Also the LEDs are bright blue. So using the interface, you can change the settings of the system itself. You can test equipment, silence alarms, and edit a lot of the different settings. Once the keypad is connected to the internet, now you have all that functionality of the keypad interface right online through any web browser. A couple other things I'll note on the bottom of the controller. There's a space for a second dual float sensor to plug in. So perhaps you just want redundant sensors in case the first set of sensors were to fail or get defeated somehow. You can always purchase a second set of sensors. They're not very expensive, and plug it in and have redundancy there as well. There's also an auxiliary input and output, and what that's for is, let's say you wanted a sensor over in your ejector pit to monitor the water level in there. You could do that and plug it in, and then if that sensor was triggered, you'd be taking advantage of the internet connectivity of the iControl and get an alarm sent to you via text or email, however you have it set up. You could also do water sensors for the floor, like by your water heater, those kinds of things. In addition, you can have an output set up so that the iControl, in addition to the internet, talks to your home security system. So depending on who your home security service provider is, they might be calling you saying, hey, we're getting a call from the sump pump. Now, it's not going to be very specific to the alarm like the email and text messages will be, but it's just another option that people might want to take advantage of. There's also additional places to plug in additional data network cables so that you can have other controllers that utilize our iControl technology. Those features are a little beyond the scope of this video. So that is a brief overview of the components that come with the iControl system. So here what we'll do is we'll just take a brief look at the interface, and so you can see what the iControl does for you when you're not even home or near the equipment, wherever that may be. On my screen right here is an email. It's just a test email that I sent myself just for purposes of this demonstration. It could be an alarm email. It could be just an A-OK saying, hey, there's nothing wrong, if you have your unit set up to do that. But if by the way, if it was an alarm email, it would have all kinds of statistics letting you know the status of things. So maybe you don't have time to go log into your unit. You could actually just look at the email and have some statistics right there. But each time the email comes through or a text comes through, you have the IP address of your unit back where the sump is. Once you click on that IP address, the interface of the unit comes up. And if you notice, this part of the interface right here looks just like the keypad. So it's very familiar to you, even if you've never logged in. If you punch the buttons on this, you'll be familiar with the interface itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log in to the unit. And what that'll do is pop in some tabs down here. And these tabs just give us access to certain things about the system. So for example, this one, this is the configuration tab. So I can tell it how often to self-test and how long I want the pump to run on cycles. And it isn't anything you have to do, but if you need to change a setting, it's all configurable. I can tell it to send me an A-OK periodically, say once a day or once a week or however often I want to receive that. I can hit my pump test button right here. So incidentally, this interface is on the PeakFlowPumps.com website. So I'm going to bring up another little screen back here. This is actually a video screen. Let me resize this. This video right here is this interface. So we're looking live at the pump that's right here. So I could hit the pump test button. You're not going to get this on the screen, but I can hit the pump test button right here, click that button, and the pump will turn on and pump the water down. You can do this on our website if you're interested in taking a look at it. So there's other tabs on the interface. There is a legend tab. That's the first tab here, and that's basically a little owner's manual. Config tab we just kind of covered. There's an alarm panel, so if there are some alarms in alarm, you can easily see which ones they are, silence them if you want to, reset the system right from this panel. The history tab allows you to generate a history of past alarms. And then finally, the last tab here is the emails tab, and you can scroll down here. You can enter different email and text addresses and configure each of those recipients. You can customize which alarms go to each recipient. So now I'm going to just hit the log out. And that is in a nutshell, that's the interface. If you're interested in seeing more details about the interface itself, please visit PeakFlowPumps.com. Thank you very much for your interest in the PeakFlow iControl, the world's first internet-connected and monitored sump pump equipment. You can find more video and documentation and general information about the iControl and all the other PeakFlow products at PeakFlowPumps.com. Thank you very much.